Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Getting Into TV. I'm Tom, and this week I'm joined by Abby, who is a third AD in drama. She's going to talk to me obviously about being a third AD, about what it's like to work in the AD department, what's expected of a runner, but also how to apply for your first TV role when you don't have the credits yet, but also about what it's like to step up and not be afraid to make a mistake. So sit back, relax, and hopefully you will learn a bit. Thank you, Abby, for joining me today. I suppose first off, what was your route into TV like?
So mine was a little bit unconventional. I was approached by my lecturer at university because a certain TV show was filming at my uni's old campus, and part of the contract for them to film at the campus was for them to include students in the crew, and they were recruiting for a rushes runner role, and I was the only one in my class that could drive, and so I landed the role, and from there I kind of worked my way onto set and convinced them to let me look after the crowd, and then kind of went from there and ended up being the contracted floor runner for the last 2 weeks of the job because the floor runner left and they needed someone to replace them.
But I suppose really driving was kind of like your saving, the saving grace there. Do you think driving is an important thing to have if you want to be in the AD department?
I think, unfortunately, yes, it is important. It's possible to do it without it. I do have a very good friend who's worked in the industry for a good number of years, who's never driven and can't drive, but she's never had a problem with working in the industry. So it's possible, but it certainly gives you a leg up if you can drive.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. When I first started in drama, it took me a while because I hadn't got my car, but as soon as I got my car, I realized people actually started giving me jobs. So it definitely does help for that role. Obviously, like I said at the start, you are a third AD.
Yes.
I've done a few videos about what a runner is, but what is a third AD? What do you do?
There's a couple of different third AD roles, but I guess I'll explain the main one to be the floor third. So the floor third is kind of the first AD's right-hand person. And you're kind of there to assist with whatever the first needs. Primarily, a lot of it is to do with organising, coordinating the cast and the essays, the extras. So a lot of it comes down to that, but there's a lot of elements of kind of note taking and bookkeeping, if you will, and keeping note of what's happening throughout the day. And making sure the producers and execs are aware of what's going on.
What are the other third AD roles that you can have then?
You can also be a base third, which is similar to a base PA, but with a bit more responsibility of preparing the cast in the essays in the morning, ready for set, and then keeping the your unit base rolling throughout the day. But you also have a crowd third, which has more responsibility with coordinating the extras. So they're there primarily to do that and take that sort of weight off of the floor third. And that usually happens when there's more than, say, 50 extras. I'd say, for example, you'd find a crowd third.
I've never been on when I was in drama, I'd never done a job where there was a crowd third, but I can actually, no, I lie, I did do a job and there was a lot of us. Well, there was a lot of of essays, and I could not imagine any, like, just one person doing that. Like that is like a job on its own. So it is interesting seeing how people cope with that.
It's a big responsibility. It is a big responsibility, but it's good fun. It's probably my role of choice with thirding is kind of what I prefer to do, is definitely crowd thirding.
What's your your usual like day to day as a third? Like what time would you usually get on set? What time would you usually leave? What is your general day to day?
So it kind of depends on whether you're doing a contract and whether you're doing dailies. For example, if you're doing dailies as a floor third, let's just say you're covering somebody who might be ill or something, your day-to-day would be, I'd say, probably turning up maybe at least half an hour before unit call, and helping the first, make sure everything's in the right place. And then once you get to unit call, making sure the actors are where they need to be, ready for rehearsal, and then kind of keeping things rolling as the day goes on, and making sure everyone's at the right place at the right time. And also there's a lot of communication between HODs, head of departments, and you're kind of the go-to when it comes to communicating with what's going on with the floor.
When I first started working in drama, there was like a load of phrases that people would say over the radio that I had no idea about. Are you able to like just give like the top three that you would probably think that as a runner going into TV you need to know about?
Okay, well, I'd say probably the most obvious one is the words kind of to do with like turning over, rolling, that kind of thing. Obviously, that means the camera is rolling, and that is said over the radio in order to make sure that everybody stays quiet and sort of keeps to themselves whilst the take is going. And that would be the most obvious one.
This is also really important from my experience anyway, is obviously the first would say turn in, then obviously you'd say turn in from what I meant, and then the runners would also repeat it. And it does sound as if there's like a shouting match going on, but it's important so people know.
Yeah, absolutely. It does sound like a shouting match, but it's really important that everybody knows that the camera is rolling so that nobody interrupts the take. So it's part of an AD's job is to make sure that everybody's aware that what's going on. So it can be a shouting match, but it certainly is an important shouting match to have.
Yeah, I love it whenever I was on set and you just see the other members of the crew just kind of be like, oh, they're at it again. Obviously, just not taking a piss out of you, but having a laugh. And I think it's important to let people know starting out that they are just having a laugh with you. It's not, they're not being horrible to you. It's part of your job.
One of the most questioned things when you go onto set for the first time is what on earth is a 10-1? And I'm sure you're aware of what that is, but that's the code for, perhaps you might say, going to the bathroom. Don't really want to say that on the radio, so 10-1 it is.
Yeah, and I suppose actually talking about the radio quickly, it's important to mention that there are, obviously you get given the radio, and I remember when I was first given it, for instance, when I worked on one show and I was doing the bass running, and I was handed 2 radios and 2 call sheets, and I was the bass runner for 2 units. And that was a terrifying moment when I was just like, oh, okay, because no one had told me up until that point. But I think it's important to mention that the radios have all got different, it might be stupid, people watching this might know exactly how to use a radio, but as in the AD team and everyone on the set, everyone's got a different channel to talk on. So don't talk on the wrong channel. Always have a list there of what channel you should be on.
Yeah, I mean, as a third AD, part of the job is to look after the radios. So you'd have during prep, you'd be the one that arranges and makes sure that everybody has the correct radio and has a list of channels of what's going on the radio, so we know who to communicate with and how to communicate with them. So that's an important part of the job as well. But it also it's I've been on sets when there's not been any radios, and I think that's been the most chaotic sets that I've ever been on. So they're very, very important.
Yeah, I can imagine that is challenging. Yep. Not having radio like that just the thought of that's a challenge. Going back to the questions that I gave you, what is the job progression like? And also adding on to this, what are the other roles in the AD department?
So I don't think there's really any specific job progression. Starting out as an AD, you might be going in on levels such as the crowd PA. It's a good place to start. So the crowd PA is the one that kind of helps the crowd third coordinate the extras and make sure they're in the right place at the right time. But that kind of only really happens on, say, big crowd days that, you're not there every day as a crowd PA unless there's crowd every day. But then the sort of main AD role for entry-level people would be a floor runner role. So that would be assisting the third and making sure that what they're doing is, if they need assistance with what they're doing, making sure that they have the help that they need. But you also have things like rushes runners, which is what I did to get my first job in the industry, was transporting the rushes, which is the footage back and forth from the edit house to the shoot, and making sure that all of the footage is safe and in the right place.
So you've got the third AD, you've got the runners. What other AD roles have you got?
So you have the first AD who runs the set. And they're the kind of coordinator, the one that keeps everything going, and the one who is the sort of the leader, if you will. But they're also the sort of right-hand man to the DOP and the director. So obviously they've got the creative input, and the first AD is the one that kind of coordinates that input. But yeah, you also have the second AD, which would find themselves in an office and not on set most of the time. So they're the ones that coordinate the call sheet, and they're the ones that run the base and make sure the actors are ready at the right time. You've also got a crowd second, which will be the one who books the extras.
I've got to say, even though I'm in factual now, if I was still in drama, I definitely want to be a second AD. That's just the one that appeals to me. I like the idea of, I mean, being in the office, but I just love that organizational. I love making call sheets. I made a whole video about how to read a call sheet, and I spent ages designing the call sheet. Like, I probably spent longer designing the call sheet than actually doing the video. I just love doing that stuff.
It is more catered towards drama, really. You can get different call sheets for dramas, but this is usually what they go for, in my experience anyway. But if you can understand this, you'll all be able to understand that.
I've done that before. I have done.
So what skills do you think you need to have as a third AD, and even as a runner, actually?
I get asked this question quite a lot, and I think primarily the most important skill to have on a set, even if you are a third or a runner, is confidence. And that is something that I struggled with when I started out. I've always had issues with confidence, but I think it's the most important thing when it comes to working on a set, is to be able to communicate and have that confidence, and be able to put yourself in a position where other people come to you if they need to, because you are the person that sort of is everybody's go-to when you are an AD. That's just part of the job. So it's really, really important to be confident and put yourself out there as much as you can. But I think there's a lot of coordination, organization, that kind of skill of, making sure everything is going the way that is planned, and it should be as per the call sheet.
When you started out, or even as a third now, do you take anything to set with you every day? So obviously you've got your call sheet, but do you take it? I know some people take like a bum bag with like pens or something. What do you take to you, if you do take anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the role. Most of the time I will be there with my bum bag, my trusty bum bag, and my pens. I do have a certain liking for the Bic for a full color pen. You can get, the one that's got the
One of these.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's my favorite. It's the go-to when you're working on a set, to be able to annotate a call sheet the way that you need to, and separate things if you need to, and that kind of thing. So that's the most important thing, and somewhere to put your radio. But I do like having like, I've got a little folder for my call sheet, and a little clip to put my water bottle on. So those kind of things that I think are really important, and a set of waterproofs, because the weather at the moment is not
absolutely
favourable.
No, absolutely. The amount of times that I've seen people starting out that don't have waterproofs, and I'm like, you're going to be so wet at the end of the day because you've not looked at the weather, and oh my god, I feel so sorry for you.
Yep. And a good set of sturdy boots. That's my go-to.
I absolutely agree with that. Boots and waterproofs and a bum bag. I never thought I'd be the person to wear a bum bag, but as soon as I got one when I left the post-production job and someone gave it to me as a present, I was like, this is the best thing I've ever had, having my own bum bag.
Absolutely. I've been converted.
Yeah. Even, and anyone watching this that doesn't want to go into the drama department but thinking about unscripted, bum bags are actually really useful for what I do as well, because I also have the script, and I have the questions that I'm answering, or for instance the recon and the call sheet, the shot list for the call sheet for the reconstruction, and obviously you've got to annotate that, and then having the pens there, I still take it with me there. So I think bum bags are universal for both sides and for all sides of TV. So obviously you went to uni.
Yes.
And you got your first job outside of through uni. Do you know of any training opportunities for those wanting to work in the AD department that may not necessarily want to go to uni?
There's a very popular one that's Screen Skills do provide an amazing trainee course for getting into the industry. Unfortunately, it's quite coveted and can be quite difficult to get involved with, but there are other things as well, like EAN, Equal Access Network, provide quite a lot of opportunities for training, and I have been facilitator for training recently for EAN, which was really fun. And they do provide input from industry professionals and courses and that kind of thing. So there's certainly things to find to get involved. University is not a necessity when it comes to being in TV. I mean, it can help, but it's not a necessity. There are other ways to learn how to be involved in the industry.
Definitely. I think even if you go to uni, and I think, speaking from experience, had I known what I know now, I'd have done my time in uni, but at the same time try and get onto sets at the same time and do work experience. I think if you are at this goes if you are at uni, if you're not, I think just try your hardest to get work experience, to get that first step in the door, because working on a set, that's where you learn everything.
I don't think I'd be where I am today without the work experience that I gained whilst I was in university. And you don't necessarily have to be in university to gain work experience, but it certainly does help. I got to where I am because of the work that I put in whilst I was studying, and gained the work experience that I did on set.
Talking about university then, what advice would you have for new starters, for people getting into the industry? Obviously, I know you said you need to have confidence and all of that, but any advice you'd give?
Getting into the industry, I will admit, is tough, it's difficult. And I was very lucky to get in the way that I did. But there are routes that you can take. A lot of jobs come up on Facebook. I found my first floor runner contract on Facebook, which was very lucky. But
in the Facebook runners group.
Yeah, in the runners group. There's a lot of crew groups on Facebook, but the People in TV Runners is the main one where a lot of people get their first jobs, including me, which is where
and me actually.
I got my first contract from that group.
My first couple of jobs from that Facebook group. I owe my career to that Facebook group.
I do too. I do have, and I still do get jobs from that group. I think making sure that you've got a really strong CV is really important for being a new starter, and communicating with people that are in the industry when it comes to sort of creating a CV and seeing what's important and what you need to include can be really, really valuable, especially when you're applying to jobs on things like Facebook. The CV is the thing that people go to first. So having a strong CV is really, really valuable.
Obviously, when starting out and you're applying for these TV jobs, it can feel a bit disheartening, obviously, when you don't have the credits to go on your CV to send to these people. What kind of stuff did you have on your CV when you were first starting out?
Well, a lot of things to do with transferable skills are quite important. Things like if you've worked in retail, customer service, hospitality, that kind of thing. Anything that gives you a client-facing or customer-facing job where you have communicating with other people is a really strong skill set to have, because that's a big part of being on set, even if it's not high-end TV or drama. Things like entertainment, commercials, corporate filming, that kind of thing. All of those skills come in handy when it comes to being on set. So that kind of experience, even if you don't have experience in the industry, that can be really valuable to have as well.
What would you expect from the runners that you're working with?
Well, we touched on the important skills to have. And again, I have to say, confidence is just the main thing. I don't want to have somebody on set who hasn't got the energy and confidence to be there and to be present and to be the communicator with different departments and that kind of thing. You've got to be able to be there and be present and not be shy. I mean, I know that can be quite tough, especially when you're first starting out. But being there and being a personality to talk to is really, really important.
I'd agree. I remember when I first started, one of the third AD, because I will happily admit I was very nervous when I first started. It just that having to shout on set, I was like, I can't do this. But we were filming on Sugarloaf Mountain, and one of the third ADs just said, "Just shout now, just absolutely shout at the top of this mountain, and then you've got it out. You shouted at me," and I'm like, so I had to do that, and it is quite hard. I think just that because it's not normal, and I think it's especially a British thing that we're so reserved. And so it's just not normal, but it is, everyone has to do it. So there's no need to be embarrassed by it.
No, of course not. I mean, starting out as a runner, you are the epitome of who everybody comes to if they need someone on set. Is that's what an AD does. You're the go-to for the coordination and that kind of thing on set. So being able to have that kind of communication with other people is really, really important. And working on confidence is something that I had to do when I started out in the industry, and I think my personality has changed completely since I started. I'm a very different person. I used to be so shy, but now I would never have been able to do this. I would never have been confident enough to talk to you like that, like I am now. But yeah, it's really important.
I'm exactly the same as you. I would not have the confidence to start talk to you, but to also just do this YouTube challenge, put myself out there, and like I think working in telly does definitely change you. You're definitely right there with what you say. Being in telly is, and especially I think in drama, it's a lot of short contracts and it's not very stable.
Mm.
How do you cope with being freelance?
That's a tough point. It can be really difficult. For myself personally, over the last sort of 2 years or so, I've been doing what we call dailies most often. And that is going from job to job, maybe 2-3 days here, sometimes longer. But that's kind of the thing I've been doing for the last couple of years. And keeping that up can be tough. There's a lot of networking that goes into keeping yourself going when it comes to being a freelancer, especially if you're working on dailies. But I've recently had my first contract in 2 years, which is, I missed doing it. I have missed having that, extended period of time working with the same people in the same place. It certainly is enjoyable to be doing a contract, but keeping yourself going as a freelancer can be tough, especially this time of year when there's not that much going on. I've been quite lucky and I've landed myself a contract, which, it's rare this time of year to have a contract in I think any part of the industry, to be honest with you.
I'd agree. I mean, it's part of the reason I switched to unscripted, because I felt like there was more stability there, and I absolutely love drama, and I'd always love to go back. But I've definitely found that even in unscripted, December, January, then winter times are just awful.
It's really tough to find a job this time of year because the shoot days are short, it's cold, it's wet, it's not, favorable shooting conditions. So a lot of things tend to avoid shooting around this time of year. Most of the time, things that are shooting will be studio-based things, and lots of jobs will avoid going out on location. So it can be tough to find work around this time of year. I certainly struggled. I've just come off of having 5 weeks off of doing nothing, which was tough, especially this time of year, and the way that the sort of economic crisis is going on at the moment can make it a little bit more complicated. But luckily I've been able to land a contract, which is really, really fortunate.
No, that's really good. I think it just shows that to work in this industry, one of the things you need to have not just confidence and the ability to just get on with people, but you just need that persistence. You need to just know that it may have been months and months and months, but something will come, and that something might end up being the thing that is months and months and months long.
Yeah.
And it is hard, and it's hard to grasp that, I think, at the start, but it's worth it because you get to make some of the best things ever, and you get to work with some amazing people and go to the best places.
I do find, and I do say to myself quite often, the work will come. You're experienced enough, I've worked enough that I know that I'm not going to be out of work forever. Something will come up.
Final question I have for you really is, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement really. I loved being a runner, and I'm sure you loved being a runner. To me, it's the best role I've ever done. You get to talk to everyone, you get to see everything, and you just get to see how this machine works. And I absolutely loved being a runner. And I just wondered, did you love being a runner?
Of course I love being a runner. It's just the most magical job to have, being involved and learning how TV works and film and that kind of thing, even in like entertainment and, like I said, commercials and that kind of thing. Being a runner is my favorite job that I've ever done. And whilst I'm very thrilled that I've managed to progress to thirding, I do miss it. I do miss working as a runner.
One thing, actually, thinking about that, obviously you've done that step up now from runner to third. What was that step up like? Did you know you were ready for it, or were you given the opportunity?
I'll be honest with you, I don't think I was ready when I did step up. Due to COVID, there was a big shortage in crew members. And that meant that a lot of runners stepped up to third before they were ready. And I think, I'm willing to say that included me. I did step up before I was ready, but I have learned, and now I do feel confident as a third, that I'm able to do the job sufficiently and well. And I had the opportunity to step up on Killing Eve. I was working as a crowd PA, and they asked me if I'd had experience setting crowd, And I said yes. And I had very minimal experience setting crowd, but I said yes. And so they promoted me to crowd third. And I kind of went on from there. My first job as a crowd third was tough, but I learned, and
And I think it's important to say as well, it's not a bad thing to mess up. It's not a bad thing, because we're all human and we've all started out. And I think everyone that's watching you, okay, you might feel like the world's on your shoulders and everyone's watching you, and all these crowd people, all of these essays are looking at you, and all the crew are looking at you being like, oh, I've messed up. But it's a learning curve, and and people are always willing to help.
It's not the end of the world if you do mess up. Having responsibility as a third is scary and can lead to, if you're not prepared, it can be very easy to mess up. And I will say that is something that I experienced, but it is not the end of the world. And, I've worked with people that I have messed up around. I have gone back to working with them, so it's not the end of the world.
People won't blacklist you, so just don't be scared to make a mistake, but try not to make a mistake. Is there anything else at all that you want to talk about that we've not spoken about, or that I haven't asked you at all?
Being in the industry, especially in high-end TV drama and film, getting in is probably the hardest thing that you'll have to do as a runner. And I think, communicating with ADs that are already in the field, working on your CV, and that kind of thing, and having an online presence as well is really important to be able to get your name out there and have your name be recognizable. That's a really, really valuable thing to have, is to make yourself visible.
Thank you so much, Abby, for talking to me. I think this has been a really good chat about being a third AD.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed this week's video. I am so grateful for everyone that watches, and I really hope these videos are of use to people, because I just know that when I was in university, I just needed that outlet to watch and to learn, and I really hope these videos fulfill that dream that I had. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another video, and I think my next one will be all about being a runner in factual entertainment on things like children in need. If you have any questions, or if you want to ask me anything about getting in TV, about where to find a job, or etc., please comment down below. On my Instagram, I also have a story section on there with all TV schemes and loads of jobs going up on there all the time that I find. So please do follow me on all my social media, because I try my best to fill it with TV jobs or TV schemes. But anyway, I will see you in 2 weeks' time. See you later.